Good morning, everybody. It's Graham here, and I just need to find where I am getting my own audio back from because that is creeping me out. Let's see here. There we go. That's better. Okay. No more weird feedback coming into my headphones a second after I say things. That's much better. Um, good morning, everyone. Graham here, POCGamer. Here for another morning of exciting mapping. And yeah, it's going to be good. If you haven't liked and subscribed on whichever platform you happen to be watching me on, please do so. And yeah, last week we finished off the 90-minute village. We reached a point where I think that it's sufficient to go forwards under its own steam. I may revisit it once I pick up some more techniques to make it look more, make it look pretty much. And yeah, my apologies for starting the stream like over a half hour late today. So the background to that is that for oh last few days, basically I tried to log into Facebook a few days ago, and it said I entered the wrong password. I hadn't. It's the same password I use all the time. So I try a few more times. It's not working. It's not working. It's not working. So I go through a password reset like a dozen times. I've got a bunch of emails from Facebook now in my inbox, all saying, like, oh, you've changed your password. Oh, here's your one-time code. So I changed it, and it's still not letting me log in. Like every time I change the password and hit the OK button, it would take me to a page saying, oh, something went wrong. We're working on fixing it, and that was it. And so I basically locked myself out of Facebook for things like buffer and this stream and other things because I wouldn't log in through my desktop. And then I tried the mobile site on my phone, like not even the app, the mobile site, and it worked. It's the weirdest thing. Just no problem. Logged me in. Perfect. So I go to the mobile site on the desktop and it lets me log in there too. Same password. Like it's my new changed password. And once I log into the mobile site, I can switch it to the regular desktop site. But yeah, so that's what happened this morning. It was the culmination of Facebook woes, and it's like a caching issue. No, I emptied the cache, like erased the last week's worth of everything, and just still didn't work. Anyways, bizarreness, weirdness. It's over. I can get back into Facebook now. I've got the live stream going on there now. I can post again to that site. Yeah, what a mess. Anyways, so today we're working on Graphis Hill. We're getting this going. So this is an encounter area. And what I mean by that is that this is specifically a zone where I want to give players that extra detail. So in my previous work with the 90-minute village, I talked about how you had to balance, fine detail versus like really getting into the weeds of map creation. Like really getting into those like fine nitty-gritty details. And this is the next level of detail. So you have your big small I love map terms. A big small scale map where it's showing lots of details over a large area, but in like sort of reduced fidelity to make it absorbable. And now we've moved down to the next layer where we need to have more detail on this map because more stuff's going to be going on, and we need to give the players more options and really communicate to them what's available to do here. So, let's get to it. So we're going to grab our brush, squiggles. Very technical term there, squiggles. Go down to 10 size. Yeah, that should be good. And we're going to select foreground and open the catalog here. So what I'm looking to do now is to create trails, because this is Graphis Hill is nearby the village. Sometimes there are things to encounter there, but it's also a place where people are going to be wandering through, and plus you'll have game trails and stuff like that. So I want to choose a texture that's a little bit different from the soil texture that I've been using for the more well-trod village paths. So I think I'm going to go with ground detail intense. That's not bad. Now, the thing to remember while you're doing this is that very few things in nature are perfectly straight. I can get oddities like rock formations and stuff like that, where you'll get straight lines, but generally animals don't tend to walk in straight lines, and neither do people if left to their own devices. They sort of meander the easy way around. So I'm going to put something over here. There we go. And don't be afraid to go underneath your trees. People and animals all like shade. There we go. Yeah. Okay, now we're going to come back here, and I believe I saw natural stairs as an option somewhere. Yeah. Yeah, now we're talking. There we go, communicate. So adding things like natural stairs will help you communicate to your players that something interesting is happening in this location. Like, it's not just a regular hill. You've got something going on. There's a natural staircase that's developed. Well, I say developed, something carved it out. Catalog. Let's see, we've got winter rocks, terrain rocks. Oh wow, that is a big rock. It's what size is this one? 86. Okay, let's drop you down to 36. Well, that is still huge. And not really good for an overhead style map. Alright, let's go back in here. Some weird rock formations. Alright. Acacia trees, nice. So we need some... I'll probably need that foliage later. So what I'm looking for is I want something to sort of designate cliffs. There we go. Yeah, I like that. So you can see here that what I'm doing is it's accentuates the central hill here as somewhere that is important. It's not just looking like a regular hill anymore. And the nice thing with these is you can bring them back a little bit and leave a little bit of the foot of the cliff itself, or not the cliff, of the hill, out at the bottom, and it just makes it look a little nicer. So you can see right there. Alright, rotate that around. Yeah. Oh, no. Oh, yeah, this is going to be one of those things where I need to watch out and make sure I don't accidentally reverse parts like I already did. Okay, so this is one of those look at your stamps things, so you can see along the base side of the cliffs there's little loose stones, and so that's what I have to use to indicate what which end is supposed to be facing where. Oh. That one. Yeah, there we go. Well, that's good for here. There we go. Now I just need to lay a few more pieces. Those ones are inverted. Let's go back up here. Too long. Okay, that can go over here. Now where are those inverted ones? There's one. There we go. That one there. It's a tiny one. Oh, that's a bit of a dog's breakfast. There we go. That looks a little better. That's too big. Six, seven. There. Just move this down a few layers. One, there we go. Oh, that's one big piece. Okay, that's why I couldn't select it. Haha. Okay, that makes sense. I'm a victim of my own design. There we go. Then we'll get rid of these. No problem. Too long. Too straight. Well, there we go. There. That looks good. Let's adjust those stairs a little bit. hit that save button. Okay, so we'll zoom out here and just look and see how that communicates much more clearly now with your potential players as to, there's something definitely going on the top of this hill. So come into stamps again. Here we go, destroyed pillars. Stamps. Catalog, destroyed pillars. Okay. How do those look if they're bigger? Oh yeah, those could totally be at 100%. So bump those up to 100%. So what village doesn't have some sort of weird, ruined, megalithic structure nearby? I mean, it's fantasy world, right? So we are going to do those. We're going to angle some of these so they... don't look like they all just fell over in the same direction. It's true, they are absolutely a staple of the fantasy genre. Which always kind of blows my mind, too, because you'll get, like, fantasy creators will be, like, working in eons, like they're working in blocks of, just unimaginable time. But for some reason, the world is still very set. Let's see here. Oh, I'm not saying the world shouldn't be covered in ruins. I absolutely agree that there should be ruins everywhere. But like a good example is the Forgotten Realms world, where logically there should be ruins everywhere because they've had multiple periods of non-human civilizations building like full-scale cities and stuff like that. But there aren't, or if there are, they're really understated and really underutilized. And the other thing I meant by like the scale of time's kind of weird is that they often there's a point of like technological stagnation and also magical stagnation. Um, Again, using the Forgotten Realms as an example, there's functionally no difference except for like the geopolitical landscape between like 100 Dale Reckoning and like 14 what are they at, like 96, 97 now. There's no functional difference. Like the technology is the same, the magic is the same. There's been no significant advances or developments in pretty much anything. It's very stagnant, and if you go back past that, the only period where it was different was just prior to what is it called there? Netheril, that's it. where there was like all this sort of advancement and development happening. And so like you can make an argument that it's post-apocalyptic, but also like it's just bizarre that nothing seems to catch on and nothing seems to develop. Um, which in a world that has live time like that is really like it drops you out of the suspension of disbelief when you start like actually poking holes, not even poking holes, just looking at it. Oh, absolutely, that's a good point. Like we have a or not we, but people because of media tend to have a perception of time and development as sort of this like linear curve going upwards. You know, where you start at one and you just develop upwards constantly, but it's quite bumpy and also incredibly dependent on the pressures on a culture. So, for example, one of my favorite examples from when I was learning about archaeology and stuff like that was during the Bronze Age and even into the Iron Age, even though those are antiquated terms in and of themselves, so they're useful for quick communication. Obsidian was still being widely used around parts of the Mediterranean to create knives and other tools because it was sharp, easy to clean, and an obsidian was available. So even though you had the technology to make iron knives or bronze knives and stuff like that, people continue to use obsidian. So it's a technology from the Neolithic that is persisted, through the rise and fall of Egypt, and like right into, like the early sort of Roman times and stuff like that. No, it's funny. You'd mentioned Mistra there. There's another comment coming in that because in theory, like the way that because of the incredibly poor world building that Wizards has put into fifth edition's Forgotten Realms, and I imagine that we'll see in 1D&D's Forgotten Realms, there's a very good chance right now that Mistral is back. Because I can't remember, there's somewhere they stated that like all the old gods have returned and like the old limitations on no overlap of portfolios are gone. And so when I read that, like there's the surface of it, which is what I think they were hoping everybody would take from it, which was, characters like Bane are back, and Myrakull, and all those sorts of things. But if you look at like the grander scope of the Forgotten Realms, it also means that all those ancient deities are likely back as well. Let's see here. Oh yeah, that's nice. Toss a ruin down here. And one here. And here's the one that nobody really goes to. So why am I placing all of these ruins? What is going on? So what is going on? I want to create this to be a something more along the lines of like a settlement in the distant past that was abandoned for whatever reason and is now home to various things for the player characters to encounter. And this is what I describe as a low-level encounter area with, pardon me, maybe some medium action happening when I get into developing this mine over here. So that's you're gonna come. Thought it odd to use cataclysms to explain edition changes. Yeah, that was a really bad habit that came out of the 1980s and 90s Like I don't know, like it's possible that it was comic book inspired because you had the whole Crisis and Crisis on Infinite Earths thing all happening back then. They're like the first like sort of major crossovers in comics that was blowing everyone's minds. But unfortunately, it was a really popular tactic back then, and at that particular point, to move into a new edition, even though it was just terrible. Oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah, no, it's like I love comics, especially like DC comics. I'm a huge fan of DC comics, always have been, and they are just incredibly difficult to get into because of the constant resets, and you shouldn't have to track the. Let's move that down a couple of layers. It's under the trees. You shouldn't have to track to get into a comic the exact era um, that it came from. And DC doesn't help either because they'll sell older or stuff from previous universes concurrently. That's another complaint. That's a whole other conversation. But yeah, so I think the first big, like in terms of games, the first big apocalypse they used was the Greyhawk one to move from first to second edition. Where they eliminated a lot of the old character classes like monks and stuff like that. And like to their credit, like I've given a lot of grief over the years to stuff that was done by TSR for being objectively terrible. Oh, well, there's more. But the way they did that, sales winning over these, yeah, hit the universe ending button to get it all. Yeah, that's more or less what happened. Yeah, they wanted to move to the new edition and just decided like, hey, let's we'll make adventures up that will help us explain why there's no monk and why some other changes have happened. So that was kind of clever. Like I'll give them credit for that. Like personally, I would have just rewritten the monk so that it wasn't a horrible derivative of the Kung Fu TV series combined with like a really poor understanding of Eastern, not Eastern, Asian, like asceticism. But yeah, so Greyhawk sort of kicked that off, and then they followed suit with Forgotten Realms, because I believe the second edition of Forgotten Realms is when they did the Time of Troubles to kick that off. Dragonlance has had so many apocalypses, like not even like for new editions, just like continue. It's the worst built world they have. They've had so many apocalypses now. So what else we got for runes here? We got those. Ooh, destroyed statues. I like it. Yeah, Dragonlance that just went all in, like all in, and it was. Whew. Text to one again. Oh yeah, the novels. So okay. Oh, sorry, I didn't mean to hit my mic there. So credit where credit's due. Some of the Dragonlance novels were actually okay. Um, I won't say great, but they were definitely okay. So we put our number 1 right there. Select that. V, 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 V. There we go. Lots of those to work with now. Like I would describe it as being aggressively okay. Some of the novels. I enjoyed some of the creativity they got into with Draconians, with like the Doom Brigade and stuff like that. I thought that was a pretty cool move on their part. There we go. Oh, thank you. Yeah, the map is coming along pretty nicely. I'm just tossing a little bit of labeling on it before I go hunting for some more stuff to sort of spruce it up a little more. So yeah, I enjoyed stuff like that, but then there was some other decisions they made with their world building that just like even at the young age I was at, where I was reading Dragonlance stuff a lot, some of it just hit wrong. Yeah, what were some other famous games that did that? Had apocalypse. Oh, so hilarious! I'm gonna hit the save button here. Hilariously, Traveler had one of the most hated editions related series of apocalypses. Oh, I haven't read that book. I remember seeing it, but at that point, I had moved past Dragonlance. I was like, no more. Well, if you're saying it's good, then I trust it's good because you've proven to have good taste. Yeah, Traveler. Oh boy, yeah, they. I was in my dragon phase. Yeah, that's fair. Um, so what happened with Traveler? This is pretty epic. So Traveler was beloved in its first edition. Like people really enjoyed the 1977 and I think it was 1970 or 1981 revision of the game. Little black box, all the LBBs, really popular, really fun. People enjoyed it. And then when it came time to, they figured, okay, we need to do our upgrade. They went to Mega Traveler, which would have been fine by itself. Like it was some needed polish for the system, some new art, all that sort of stuff is really good. But then rubble, perfect. They took it one step too far and introduced a civil war to the game, and basically they had not anticipated how popular the Third Imperium was as a baseline setting, because the way they'd written it, it was very easy to work around. You didn't necessarily have to engage with any of the nobility or aristocracy aspects of it. It was just a really great sort of background radiation for the universe. It was solid. It worked well. But they introduced a civil war, and people were all super upset about this civil war because they felt that it brought unnecessary conflict to tables, because you had people who were suddenly given the option to like rebel against the Third Imperium, who were all about it. Then there were people who just wanted to play the game like it was before, and it was all very lore intensive and lots of upset people everywhere. And then they came out with the edition of Traveler I got into the game with, which was oh, wrong one. Stamps. Open the catalog. Which was the New Era, and the New Era stepped it up even worse. So with Mega Traveler, the Civil War ended on a cliffhanger. All that was said is basically one of the I think it was one of the Imperial princes got a hold of some sort of super weapon and released it, and it was destroying computer systems and a bunch of other stuff. What did I just select? Oh, destroy brewery. I don't want to destroy a brewery. That's horrible. I'll get a couple more of these pillars. I'm going to put them right here. Size 100. And then they just sort of left it. They're like, yep, this is the end. See you next edition. And people were like, what just happened? Why are you guys like this? Completely reasonable responses. And then the New Era came out, and people lost their minds because, and of course I didn't know any of this when I started playing. I just thought that Traveler was some sort of like science fiction post-apocalypse in space. I thought that was normal. But yeah, they introduced what they called the virus, which was a sapient, sentient, silicon-based life form that was found on some planet by that Imperial Prince, weaponized, and that is a huge compliment. Thank you. I hope to be even a fraction as prolific and creative as him. Thank you. That's really made my day. Thanks. But yeah, so they got this thing. They named it creatively the virus. And okay, I need some campfires. Maybe some monster stuff. Yeah. What do we got for bones? And the virus was introduced to the game, and initially it was supposed to just like get into computer systems and destroy them, and but then because it was based on a living silicon-based life, it began to evolve. And when it began to evolve, oh yeah, it's absolutely one of those action movies made in the 1990s, early thousands. Yes. So when it began to evolve, some of them, some instances became more violent. Others became weird. Like there's one variant of the virus called the Observer, and this was when it interacted with like a dedicated computer system that was so hyper focused on one thing that it affected the virus's evolution. And so you'd end up with like a virus infected observation platform in space that's just really into watching a star. And eventually some of them evolved to the point where they began to see humans as a benefit because they could actually do maintenance on them, and a whole bunch of stuff happening. And I thought it was all perfectly normal, but it was not. Looks not sure how I feel about that. Ooh, I like that though. Definitely like that. And people hated that even more because it just it took a science fiction setting from something that people really absolutely loved and could do a lot of stuff in, and really added a lot of aspects that were hard to work around and added a lot of extra steps to things. And there was also the difference in system they had trouble with because Traveler went from its 2d6 based system of the past to a oh, what is it? Was it a d20? Yeah, it's a roll under d20. So like rolling a 1 was the best result you could get. I think that's what, yeah. So went to a whole thing. Yes, this is Incarnate. It is a browser-based mapping program. Or I'm sorry, mapping app. Map app. Anyways, um, I'm using the Pro version of it. There's a free version as well. The main difference between the Pro and the free versions is that you get more stamps with the Pro one. So you had more stamps and HD assets, and you also are able to export in HD. So, for example, the little maps that I release at the end of these sessions, I export them in 4K, and then put a watermark over them and stuff like that. I think it's $20 a year or something like that, or $25 a year for the Pro license. So it's super reasonable. And yeah, for like a lot of stuff, it's just ready to go out of the box. Okay, so I need some foliage. Conifers. No, I need regular trees. Wait, no, I don't. Bushes, that's what I need. Okay, I need to see how big are the trees. 133. Okay, so this is why I need to check when you've done a scaling like this, because you want to try to keep stuff as matched as possible. So all these trees are at 133 size, and so if I want to throw down bushes, which is what I want to do, and have them match, they need to be 133 size as well. Bushes. So Traveler, yeah, it's did not have a gentle or fun series of apocalypses. The funny thing, though, and this is a little bit ironic because I'm not into the GURPS system at all for various reasons, but GURPS did a Traveler version a few years back, like a decade or so ago, and pound for pound, the alternate timeline they came up with was so much better. They took the timeline from the end of Mega Travelers, so it was the Civil Wars raging, all that stuff's going on, and then basically rewrote it so that it was less 90s action movie and more how to describe it? Like, I want to say rational, but more clearly thought out. Like, the Imperium didn't fall, the virus didn't ravage the universe. Oh yeah, GURPS had a whole renaissance in the late 90s. With, I think it was the 3rd edition. It was pretty amazing. It was the only edition of GURPS that I played a little bit of. I really liked the books that were generally like their high tech Atlantis, all the little guidebooks and stuff like that. And yeah, then they got slammed. Like the D20 era hit them pretty hard because they didn't switch over, which is probably for the best. I think those those ruins need to be bigger. The trees are 133. They should be 133 as well. Oh yeah, that looks a lot better. Yeah, so they had a whole cool thing going on in the 90s, and then it sort of fell off when the bubble burst. Steve Jackson Games, as far as I can tell, shifted their arcs to focus more on their board games and stuff like that, and things like Munchkin, which carried them through. I believe GURPS is making a bit of a low-key comeback. Like I see a lot of their Steve Jackson Games is very busy on TikTok and other places, but it's still a shadow of what it was previously. There you go. Just resize all these things. Let this be a lesson. Check your sizes before you lay a bunch of stuff down. Yeah, I remember that Illuminator card game. That was a fun game. A friend of mine was big into Munchkin, and before we all had kids and were in our New Year's got a little too hectic to go over to each other's places, we actually used to do New Year's Eve Munchkin games. It was a lot of fun. There we go. So, yeah, move that down a layer so now it looks like the trees are growing up through the ruins. Yeah, but yeah, it was really a lot of poor decision making got made in the 90s. Not just in terms of fashion, but also very much in terms of like game game design and game. Oh yeah, this is going to be huge. And world building. Like, wow, is the world building dodgy? Okay, so this is so big, I'm actually going to spread it like that. There we go. So now the path actually goes between the bones. Nice. Yeah, what else happened then with Chaotic World Link? Oh, yeah, so Palladium, my eternal problematic fave, they tried to do a giant crossover sort of apocalypse event over the last decade, and it's been about as functional as you can imagine. So with them, they came into it decades late, after everybody else had more or less stopped that practice, and introduced what do they call it? The Megaverse Inferno or something. I can't remember the term they used for it, but basically they decided that they're still a very post satanic panic planes of, what was it, Dival and something. It's their Palladium's in-house demon and devil universes decided to go to war, and it spilled over into the whole megaverse and was sort of just like everywhere. And to be perfectly honest, I don't know how it fit with anything they'd done previously. And it was exactly as janky as you may imagine it being, given that Palladium has a pretty poor record when it comes to meta plots, with the single exception of the Tolkien. What was it? What would they call it? The Coalition War with Tolkien. They actually put some effort into that. It was like a multi-book campaign that was, to be fair, pretty good, and it surprised me as well, because when you read a lot of Kevin Sandbide's work, you can definitely see the preference for like magic users and stuff like that coming out in it. And he chose to have the magic users lose, which shocked and surprised a lot of people. Mostly because magic in a lot of games tends to be treated as like this ultimate, like super weapon that can't be stopped. But the way they dealt with it was pretty straightforward. They simply recognized that too much. They simply recognized that magic users need to rest and recharge and everything else like that. But recharging a laser rifle is easier. And yeah. Let's see here. Of stored hypothesis. Well, that's interesting. Which book was that? Or which apocalypse was it? Is it in like a game world or? That's funny. Started talking about Palladium stuff and immediately dropped 2 viewers. It's fair. Palladium is definitely a an acquired taste in the gaming world, and usually an indicator you're old, like me. Like, ugh. And now I'm just thinking about all the apocalypses I've read about in game books through the years. I think one of my favorite ways that an apocalypse or like an apocalyptic level events were handled was actually in the Al-Qadim campaign setting, because they had a whole thing going on. Okay, I need to save button. They had a whole thing going on in that setting where the modern age was the enlightened age, which was great for the campaign setting, but made no sense within the context of it getting bolted onto the Forgotten Realms. But that's a whole other thing. But yeah, like the modern age is the Enlightenment, where like all peoples groups all work together and stuff like that. But then in the past, during this like more strife sort of an era, there's all these remnants of that out there, and it really created sort of like a cool dichotomy. Commentary wasn't the best in it, but it definitely made the effort to try to treat its deeper history as a more clear and present resource and danger than a lot of other work TSR did. Let's see here. I really like the conceptual kernel behind the White Wolf. Yeah, that's. Oh yeah, 100%. I was and remain a huge Mage of the Ascension fan. I I think it was, I can't remember if it was the first or second edition book of it for Christmas in 1995. And I must have read that book back to front a dozen times. I loved everything that was happening in it. Okay. So I'm going to go to Incarnate. I need fires. Campfires? Camp? Is that an option? Oh, okay, here we go. Something at least. So this is one of the flaws that this app has, and that's that it does not have one-to-one stamp equivalency across all of its stamp sets. So, for example, you can see here, for battle maps, you've got a few options. You've got this in the core, which is supposed to be a campfire, again, for battle maps. But then when you get into regional stuff, there's very little. And then when you get to like the level where I'm working at, the regional sets, there's just not a lot to work with. So that's one of the frustrating aspects of this app. However, if you do have your own icons, or if you've, for example, purchased an icon set and are allowed to use it with other programs, so I don't know, like if you got went on to Itch and picked up a set of I don't know, pixel art or something like that, and you want to use that, you can, if the license for it allows for it, you can totally load it into this and fire it up, and it works great. Like I've got, like here's some assets that I've added through the through time, so you can totally add your own assets. They just takes either time or money. So yeah, I think you're joking about that, but absolutely. In so I'm gonna have to use this. I think, like in my honest opinion, the only thing that's keeping Incarnate from being everything that it absolutely could be is that there are not enough assets in it. They're doing some amazing work building up the app in terms of functionality. They are doing some amazing, like it's incredibly stable, which is something I really like. I don't have to worry about it crashing. Um, and I love that I can export in HD. That's all fantastic. Like two giant thumbs up. What's holding it back now is the lack of stamps. The fantasy sets are hit and miss. Like there's not, they don't have full one for one. So like just to give an example, watercolor cities. Okay, I have, get rid of that. I have elves, ruins, and everything, and like desert. Everything is pretty much default humans there. But if I go to, let's see here, watercolor cities. If I go to fantasy world, oh, now I've got dwarf buildings, desert buildings, elf buildings, orc buildings, human, like I've got, all of a sudden I have a huge variety to work with. And yeah, that's the other thing, is there's no. Oh, I need to get that camp one back. Um, there is no science fiction or modern stamps. And yeah, like I love that they have winter stuff now. It's a lot easier than trying to paint snow on onto the icons. But it's still. Let's see, I don't know where to put this camp. There needs to be a reason to come down here, so I'm going to throw it down here. Yeah, there we go. And then I'm going to throw some bushes around it. That's around 133. Yeah, like there's no sci-fi stuff. There's no modern stuff. So as a as a setup, it's sort of losing ground to other games that have more options available. Or not other games, other apps that have more options available right off the hop. So throw some stuff down. Yeah, the lighting is challenging. I haven't gotten into that yet. But it is something that I would like to do. Let's see here, open catalog. Wood. There's some log. Maybe it's. That's cool. Try log. There's burnt logs in hell. What? Logs for taverns, fantasy battle map. This thing's just ridiculous sometimes. This fantasy battle map says fallen trees. Ah, here we go. Toss a couple of these down. These are a little smaller. There we go. So here, move that down a few layers. Seal part right there. There we go. That looks better. Let's okay, I like that. I like how that's looking. Put that right in the middle, put 4 there. Should probably have something on the skeleton. There's 5. There we go. Nice. Oh, that'll be a cool map. Astral Sea ship map. That'll be cool. That'll be really cool. I want to put something up here. Let's see. Ooh. And the problem is that it's the wrong art style. Let's see here. That actually works. This just looks like a weird spot up there. Yeah, I like that. That looks gives that area something going on. This is 6. Back here, grab some bushes. Helps if the bushes are sized right. Scatter bushes through here. Create some undergrowth. Now, speaking of plane hopping adventures, I saw as part of their "Come Back, We Love You, It's All Cool" announcements there, Wizards is apparently bringing Planescape back this year. And given how shoddy Spelljammer was, I do not envy them when the Planescape fans kick off. Especially given that Planescape is such a world-building intensive campaign setting. Like, way more so than anything else they've put out to date. In good world-building news, though, I've been having a great time reading through stuff for Cyberpunk Red and 2077. As well as Pathfinder Secondary, Galarian's world building is continuing to be just top notch, which is really nice. Okay, let's hit that save button. Yeah, like really, really nice. They've got, I think, Paizo's giving away their Traveler's Guidebook for free right now, so I'm going to be hopping on that today. Because I've read excerpts of that and it was really good. And then for Cyberpunk Red, yeah, it's just still going through the pile of stuff like I talked about the data pack the other day, which is just phenomenal. They really killed it with that as a supplement. And they got Black Chrome coming out, and I'm excited about that. Let's see here. Yeah, Pathfinder's world building is top notch, and I've been thinking a lot about why they're killing it, and Wizards seems to be struggling. And honestly, I think it comes down to Wizards has progressively and repeatedly now divested themselves of their world builders. Like, they don't retain them. The world builders they had going in third edition, most of them left when fourth came out. And then this is 7, I believe. The world building they did in fourth edition was just trash. Like, talking about Apocalypses, like how they handled the Forgotten Realm, how they did every campaign setting they released, was just horrible. Like, I saw the reasoning behind it all. You know, like, I understand they were trying to, like, specifically make every campaign setting 100% compatible with the content from the core books, the player's manuals, and stuff like that. But the end result was just so bad. Like, the settings lost their flavor when they weren't, wiping out all the major nations that were, not European based. But yeah, um, they lost a bunch there, and then coming into fifth edition, they pretty much just had adventure designers there, like Chris Perkins and a lot of the rest of their senior crew there. They got their start at writing adventures, and that's what they specialize in. And writing adventures is definitely like it's a skill unto itself, and I will never deny that. But it doesn't translate one for one to good world building. And I think we've seen that as they've struggled. Whereas Paizo, especially towards the end of third edition, they had a lot of world builders, um, like a lot of world builders there. Like they were even working on like developing worlds that all the dungeon adventures fit into and everything. It was really cool. And so they just sort of had a leg up, and they've maintained that. Because yeah, like with the travel guide there, um, Paizo's really maintained that world building ethos because, um, well, I understand and agree that yes, every table is going to be different. You're seldom going to find a table that's trying to do things 100% to game canon and things like that. But there's also a really big component of inspiration that comes from good world building, and variety. And yeah, there's like a balance you need to hold between like too much lore, not enough lore, too many rules, and bloat versus not enough rules, and all the homebrewing that comes with that. But yeah, I really wish they were doing better at their world building, but it's not happening right now. So fire effects, hellfire. Yeah, I don't even know if you'd have to scrape. Like, there's not a lot of lore in the core books anymore. Like, they're never really third edition, I think, and fourth kind of broke the. Oh wow, that is huge. Sort of broke the mold in terms of introducing lore into core books because yeah, that's not going to work. Let's maybe move that up a bit. Um, that's a little too on the nose. Yeah, the only real lore they present in like the fifth edition core books is like some stuff in the PHB and a little bit in the monster descriptions. And I'm pretty confident that even if you left that stuff in, um, if you like just condensed the information and presented it in a more sensible manner, you could probably fit it all into like a single 256 page book. So I'm not generally doing anything with D&D anymore because I don't want to feed their network externalities concept very much. But my prediction for Planescape is great comment here. It's so philosophically focused around alignment. I don't know how they're going to translate it into 5e. I think the answer is going to be poorly. I think that they're going to try to make things as relative as possible, and that it's going to feel very grayish. and it's precisely because like they've a lot of these old settings, especially Planescape, were heavily based on Gygax's concept of alignments, where they were like set in stone and they were prescriptive and descriptive, not just you know, theoretical guidelines. Yeah, that's another thing. That's an amazing point. They may just go for the aesthetics and focus on that over substance, which is sadly something Planescape is pretty easy to do to. Like it is, it's a game. Uh, oh, nice, coming up on 90 minutes. Sweet. Um, it's a game and a setting, or correction, it's a setting for a game where it's easy to do. Yeah, like it's. I honestly don't even know why they keep alignment in the game at this point. All right. So coming up on our 90-minute point, so let's fit the screen and see what happened. And I'm digging this. It's a little bit busy. So that's not perfectly ideal. I'm going to make this smaller. There we go. So it's a little bit busy, but uh, we want this to be a place for multiple small jobs. Not even going to call them adventures. Because when you say adventure, it sort of conjures up ideas, you know, like you're going out, you're traveling, you're seeing the world, you're doing all this other sorts of stuff. But this is it's relatively close to the village. So, like, the village itself is just, like, up over here-ish. You know, and the Adventurers Guild will be right about here. So, this is a place that is probably pretty well known, the sorts of things that could appear there. And how, you know, there's probably some really well established, like, this is how we deal with this when it appears. And that's good. But it could still be a place for, you know, new adventurers to go out. You've got some jobs to do. And so what I've got going on now, so we've got 7 locations on here. And these aren't all necessarily places where encounters can happen, but they're also points of interest. And, you know, places where you could hook the players into interacting with the world, with the map a little bit better. So up here we've got, you know, our destroyed statue. I'm going to make that bigger. I want that destroyed statue bigger. Yeah, there we go. Um, oh, it must be trees or something out there. Anyways, so hit the save button again. Sorry I'm saving it so much. GIS habits die hard. So up here, underneath our wonderful save icon right now, yeah, their subreddit's amazing. I don't spend a lot of time on Reddit, but I can spend time on their Reddit. So up here we've got what looks like some sort of megalithic site. We've got a giant rock, giant flat top rock. We've got some pillars around it, fallen statue, some stairs leading up, some fallen pillars down here. So this is definitely an encounter area, or a place where you can have some sort of like fantastical event going on. Built around that, we've got some ruins. So there was something was up here at some point. The ruins are nondescript, so it's not saying whose they are. They're just ruined buildings, so you can sort of fill in the blanks as you need to with that. No issues. And ruins are a great place to have little secret items, hints, clues, minor monsters, all that sort of stuff. And the walls also add a little bit of defensive capability, so in the event of problems, the players can always do something. And we got this nice cliff going around here, which really sets that area apart. Coming down here, I threw down that big spine with some ribs sticking out. I think that's really cool. The path goes through the vertebrae, and sort of ends here. Cool thing, giant bones out in the forest. Adds some fantasy aspects. Same with these ones up here. These are a little bit more hidden. And these ones being in the woods the way they are strikes me as a place where things may appear if summoned. Coming down here, we have a campsite. You know what? Bandits got to eat. Players need to eat. Small bands of monsters need to eat. Throwing down a little campsite shows that there's activity in a place. Got some rubble scattered around just for, rubble. We have our tree up here. Which, is this the right size? Yeah, that's the right size. Okay, good. We have our tree up here, which is sort of our tangible link to the village map site above it. And we have right here our mine. Now, the idea that I have moving forward, because I'm pretty satisfied with how this is looking as far as an encounter zone. We've got some trails, we have points of interest, we have things to grab the attention of the players. And so what I'm thinking now is I'm going to build some little encounter area battle maps for the areas that are battle map appropriate. So that's going to be up here, something down in the ruins, and maybe something around the skull, or not the skull, the bones or something like that, something in the forest. And the reason I'll just build a single battle map for these locations. Now, I'll talk about this when I'm actually doing the battle maps, but the thing to remember is that you don't have to be 100% representational as you're zooming out to see the bigger map. So when I actually build these encounter maps, the battle maps on Thursday, they're not going to look identical to these areas. Okay, and that is okay. That's not a problem. That is an okay thing to do because each map that you build is communicating something different. That big zoomed out map is communicating where things are in broad terms. The encounter zone map is communicating to the players, where there's more things to do in an area. And finally, the battle map is where you get into, this is where you're going to get into your really super specific placement for things like the pillars, the statue. I'm only going to build one ruin battle map. Maybe two. Okay, one of these. Just because you don't have to necessarily rebuild these things over and over and over again. You don't need to have a ton of different battle maps, because you can always just flip them around, flip the horizontal, flip the vertical, to change things up. And then finally, after I get those battle maps done, we're going to get into some dungeon mapping as we get into this mine here, because there's going to be the safe mining area and then nonsense for adventurers. And overall, I'm pretty happy with how this has gone, and I'm pretty happy with the series overall. So thank you very much for joining me. If you haven't liked or subscribed on whatever service you're watching me on, whether it's Twitch, Facebook, or YouTube, please do so. And I will see you all again on Thursday. And you can find me on all sorts of social media as POCGamer. So take care, everyone. Have a great day.